Imagine sitting shoulder to shoulder with 40 men, your knees pressed tight in a narrow wooden vessel. The sea is restless beneath you, the air sharp with salt spray. Each stroke of the oar draws you further from home, further into the unknown. This was the rhythm of life aboard a Viking longship. Welcome to this quiet journey into the world of Viking raiders. Not the myths of horned helmets or endless battles, but the gentler, slower truths preserved in wood, sagas, and soil. Together, we will step aboard their ships, follow their journeys across oceans, uncover the mysteries of their daily lives, and glimpse the realities of their seafaring existence. To begin, let us take our place in the cramped space of a longship and imagine the rhythm of an ordinary day upon the waves. The day begins not with birdsong or a sunrise over fields, but with the steady groan of timber beneath your body. The longship rocks gently, its curved hull rising and falling with the waves. Around you, men shift and stretch, their cloaks damp from sea spray, their bodies sore from hours of rowing. The longship is narrow and low, about 25 meters long. Along each side, benches are fitted with oars, and here you sit, your hands already raw from the wood. There is little shelter. The sea breeze bites at your skin, and the mist settles into your hair and clothes, leaving you perpetually damp. When the wind favors you, the great square sail rises and the rhythm changes. The creak of rope and mast takes over from the splash of oars. But when the air stills or the ship must be guided into tight waters, the oars return and the strain of rowing consumes the body once more. Meals are simple, drawn from stores packed at departure. Dried fish, hard bread, smoked meat, water carried in barrels, quickly grows stale, and ale or mead may sometimes take its place. The food fills the stomach, but it never brings comfort. Sleep comes in short intervals. Men rest where they sit, cloaks pulled around them against the cold. There are no cabins, no privacy. Rain soaks the deck, and the sea seeps into every seam. The smell of tar, sweat, and brine becomes familiar, clinging to every surface. This was the rhythm of their days. Or wave after wave. Longships were swift and strong, yet they demanded endurance from all who sailed them. Few of us today, accustomed to comfort and space, would last more than a single day in their world. As the journey continues, the monotony is broken only by the occasional sighting of land or the rare encounter with another vessel. The horizon becomes a constant companion, a reminder of the vastness of the sea and the smallness of your world within the ship's wooden embrace. The Vikings were not just raiders, but skilled navigators. They used the sun, stars, and natural signs to guide their way across open waters. The ship's leader, often standing at the stern, would make decisions based on these observations, determining the course and pace of the journey. Communication aboard the ship was essential. Orders were shouted over the wind and waves, and every man had to work in unison for the ship to move efficiently. This cooperation extended beyond just rowing. It was crucial in all aspects of shipboard life, from repairing damaged planks to distributing rations. As days turn to weeks, the physical toll becomes evident. Muscles ache from constant exertion, skin chafes from salt and damp clothing, and minor injuries fester in the humid conditions. Yet, there is a sense of pride and camaraderie that grows among the crew. Forged in the shared hardship of the sea, the longship itself becomes a living entity, creaking and groaning with each wave. You learn to read its sounds, to anticipate its movements. The wood beneath your feet, once alien, becomes as familiar as the ground of your homeland. Storms were a constant threat, turning the sea from a pathway to a potential grave. In these moments, the true mettle of Viking sailors was tested. Working together, they would lower the sail, secure loose items, and bail water tirelessly to keep the ship afloat. As land finally appears on the horizon, a mix of relief and anticipation sweeps through the crew. For some, it means rest and resupply. For others, it signals the start of raids or trade. The longship, your home for weeks, now becomes the bridge between two worlds, the known and the unknown. This was the reality of sailing with Viking raiders. It was a life of hardship and adventure, of monotony punctuated by moments of extreme danger and exhilaration. It shaped not just their journeys, but their entire culture, leaving an indelible mark on history that we still study and marvel at today. From the rhythm of daily rowing, we turn now to a figure who carried Viking seafaring far beyond familiar shores, the Viking raider. Their names are remembered in sagas and feared in distant lands, yet their stories, like the sea itself, drift between certainty and memory. The Viking raiders were sons of the North, born in the harsh frontiers of Scandinavia around the 8th century. Growing up in these unforgiving lands, they would have known the sea not as a boundary, but as a pathway to wealth and glory. The sagas tell us that sometime around the year 793, they set sail from their fjords in search of lands ripe for plunder. Imagine yourself among their crew. The longship pushes westward, away from the familiar shores of Norway or Denmark. Days blend into one another, marked only by the movement of sun and stars. The sea stretches endlessly, and the coastline disappears behind you. With each mile, anticipation grows, for no map guides the way to your next target. The sagas describe 3 types of raids that Viking crews would undertake. The first was the hit and run, likely targeting isolated monasteries or coastal villages. Then came the river raids, pushing deep into foreign lands along waterways, with longships that could navigate shallow waters. And finally, the great army's massive forces that would winter in enemy territory, striking fear into the hearts of kings and commoners alike. For the men who sailed with these raiders, these voyages were not mere adventures. They were a chance at riches after years of poverty. They were opportunities to prove their worth in battle and earn a place in Valhalla. The sagas recall that raiders would gather intelligence, plan their attacks meticulously, and strike with the fury of a winter storm. While some details blur with time, historical accounts and archaeology support much of the story. At Lindisfarne in England, the ruins of a monastery stand as a testament to one of the earliest recorded Viking raids. Buried hoards of silver, elaborate weapons, and foreign artifacts found across Scandinavia suggest that many raiders returned home wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. The life of a Viking raider was not for the faint of heart. Days at sea were long and grueling. Filled with the constant labor of rowing and sailing, food was often scarce and unappetizing. Salted meat, hard bread, and whatever fish could be caught along the way. Fresh water was a precious commodity, carefully rationed to last the journey. Storms were a constant threat, capable of swallowing entire fleets in the blink of an eye. Many a Viking longship found its final resting place at the bottom of the sea, taking with it the dreams and lives of its crew. Yet for those who survived, the rewards could be immense. Imagine the tension as a raiding party approached its target. Hearts would race, palms would sweat on the handles of axes and swords. The element of surprise was crucial. A swift, overwhelming attack could mean the difference between victory and defeat. The clash of steel, the roar of battle cries, the acrid smell of smoke as buildings burned. These were the sensations that defined a Viking raid. But raiding was not just about violence and plunder. It was also a complex dance of politics and negotiation. Some Viking leaders became skilled diplomats, extracting tribute from fearful rulers or carving out new kingdoms for themselves in foreign lands. Others took on roles as mercenaries, selling their martial prowess to the highest bidder. The rhythm of their days remained the same. Oars pulling, sails straining. But now, the horizon held a promise few others in Europe had ever seen. For the Viking raiders, each voyage was a step into the unknown, a chance to write their names in the annals of history and secure their place in the halls of legend. As we look back on these fierce warriors of the sea, it's easy to romanticize their exploits or condemn their brutality. But to truly understand what it was like to sail with Viking raiders, we must see them as they saw themselves. Bold explorers, skilled warriors, and men driven by the harsh realities of their time to seek fortune and fame across the vast, unforgiving sea. From Leif's long voyage westward, we turn now back towards the homelands of the Vikings, to the quiet mounds of earth where ships were laid to rest, not upon the waves, but beneath the soil. These silent sentinels of the past hold secrets that speak volumes about the lives, beliefs, and aspirations of those who once sailed the treacherous seas. One of the most extraordinary discoveries came in 1904, when farmers near the Oslofjord uncovered what we now call the Oseberg ship burial, dating to around the year 834. Beneath a mound lay a longship over 20 meters in length, carved with intricate patterns of animals and spirals. But this ship was not destined for sea. It was a vessel for the afterlife, a testament to the Viking belief in a journey beyond death. Inside this ancient time capsule were the remains of 2 women, believed to be of high status, surrounded by an astonishing collection of objects. The burial chamber was a treasure trove of Viking craftsmanship and culture. There were carts with ornate carvings, their wheels silent after centuries of rest. Beds with finely woven textiles spoke of comfort even in the afterlife. Sledges, tools, and cooking pots hinted at the practicalities of daily life. While the remains of horses, oxen, and dogs, sacrificed to accompany their masters, revealed the depth of Viking spiritual beliefs. Imagine the burial as it once was, a solemn yet grand affair. Picture a ship, once the pride of seafarers, drawn up onto land and placed within a carefully prepared pit. Skilled hands filled it with goods that spoke of wealth and meaning, each item carefully chosen to serve the deceased in the world beyond. For the living who performed this ritual, this was not simply an act of farewell. It was a bridge between worlds, a continuity of existence. The ship that once carried warriors across tumultuous seas would now carry the soul into eternity. Other ship burials, such as the Gokstad ship, tell similar stories of Viking beliefs and customs. There too lay a chieftain, his final resting place, adorned with weapons that spoke of his prowess in battle, animals to serve him, and feasting gear for the celebrations that awaited in Valhalla. These burials remind us that ships were not merely tools of raiding and exploration. They were sacred vessels, symbols of status, power, and passage, both in this life and the next. The rhythm of Viking days, harsh as it was, ended not in silence but in ritual. Every plank of wood, every object laid beside the dead, reflected deeply held beliefs about life, death, and the journey beyond. The soil preserved these secrets for centuries, and when archaeologists finally lifted the timbers back into the light, the past spoke once more, revealing tales of a people both fierce and reverent. From these quiet graves, we begin to see the world of the living anew, the same hands that wielded axes in battle and guided ships through storm-tossed seas also crafted delicate ornaments and prepared elaborate burials. The Vikings, often remembered for their ferocity, were a people of profound complexity. They envisioned ships not just as means of conquest, but as pathways to eternity. These burial mounds, silent guardians of Viking lore, offer us a glimpse into a world where the line between the physical and spiritual was fluid. They challenge our perceptions, reminding us that those who endured cramped benches on long sea voyages also dreamed of grand journeys in the afterlife. The care taken in these burials speaks of a culture that valued not just martial prowess, but artistry, craftsmanship, and spiritual preparation. As we ponder these ancient graves, we are reminded of the multifaceted nature of Viking society. These were not just raiders and explorers, but craftsmen, artists, and deeply spiritual individuals. The objects found in these burials, from intricate jewelry to practical tools, paint a picture of a rich and complex culture, one that valued both the practical and the symbolic. And now, we move from burial mounds to the halls of the living, to the feasts of Viking chieftains, where the rhythm of the day was measured not by the stroke of oars, but by the passing of drinking horns. Here, in the warmth of firelit halls, we will discover another facet of Viking life, one filled with boisterous celebration, strategic alliances, and the forging of legends that would echo through the ages. As we transition from the solemnity of burial rites to the vibrancy of Viking feasts, we carry with us the knowledge that these were a people who lived life to its fullest, always with an eye to the horizon, whether it be the edge of a new world or the threshold of the afterlife. Their ships, whether sailing the seas or buried in the earth, were more than mere vessels. They were the embodiment of Viking spirit, carrying them through life, into legend, and beyond. From the damp benches of the longship and the solemn silence of burial mounds, imagine now stepping into a great timber hall. Here, the rhythm of the day shifts entirely. No longer bound to oars or the salt sting of the sea, you are surrounded instead by warmth, flickering firelight, and the sound of voices raised in laughter and song. These were the feasting halls of Viking elites, places that stood at the very center of community life. Archaeology reveals their scale. Long buildings, some stretching more than 40 meters, with carved beams, raised platforms, and a central hearth. Here, chieftains gathered their followers, not only to eat and drink, but to secure loyalty, forge alliances, and display their wealth. The food was richer than anything eaten aboard ship. Roasted meats, stews thick with barley, and fish pulled from rivers and coasts filled wooden platters. From excavated middens, we know of game birds, shellfish, and even imported spices from distant trade routes. Drinking horns were filled with mead or ale, passed from hand to hand, a ritual as social as it was nourishing. The Sagas describe these gatherings with reverence. Scalds poets would recite verses, weaving the deeds of ancestors into words that drifted through the smoky air. Music from lyres and horns filled the pauses between speech. Around the chieftain's seat, men pledged loyalty, exchanged gifts, and listened to tales of journeys far across the sea. But even here, contrasts remained. The elite feasted in comfort, while the lower ranks still lived on simpler fare. In simpler dwellings, without carved furniture or imported luxuries, the hall magnified power, reminding all who entered of the difference between common sailor and commanding chieftain. The rhythm of their nights was not hardship, but ritual. Each feast reaffirmed the bonds that held Viking society together. The longship may have carried them across oceans, but the hall carried their stories forward, anchoring them in memory. Yet we must not forget the stark contrast between these moments of warmth and the harsh reality of life at sea. For those who sailed with Viking raiders, existence was often a brutal affair. The longships, while marvels of engineering, offered little comfort on long voyages. Men huddled together for warmth, their bodies pressed against damp wood, the taste of salt ever present on their lips. Raids brought the promise of wealth, but also the constant threat of death. The clash of steel, the screams of the wounded, and the acrid smell of burning settlements were as much a part of the Viking experience as the grand feasts in timber halls. Food at sea was simple, and often unappetizing. Dried fish, hard bread, and whatever game could be hunted on brief shore excursions sustained the crew. Fresh water was a precious commodity, carefully rationed and often supplemented with weak ale to mask its stagnant taste. Disease was a constant companion on these voyages. Close quarters, poor sanitation, and limited medical knowledge meant that a simple infection could spread rapidly through the crew. Many who set out on raids never returned, claimed not by enemy blades but by the unforgiving nature of life at sea. Yet for all its hardships, the life of a Viking raider held an undeniable allure. It offered the chance for glory, wealth, and adventure beyond the confines of their homeland. The sagas tell of men who began as lowly oarsmen and rose to become legendary warriors, their names etched into the annals of history. And so, we leave the Viking world. From the damp planks of the longship to the daring journey of Viking raider, to the ship burials that whispered of beliefs beyond life, and finally to the feasting halls where power was displayed in firelight and song, the Vikings were not simply raiders or conquerors, but people whose lives were bound to the sea, to ritual, and to community. Their days were hard, their nights sometimes warm with fellowship, and their memory survives in both saga and soil. If you found this journey into the Viking world intriguing, consider joining us again here on FactsHubHQ. Subscribe for more quiet explorations of history, archaeology, and science, the forgotten stories that still shape our world today.